Disney is in a tailspin. Disney is reeling from box office bomb after box office bomb because of box office bomb Bobby Iger. But there is a lot of congratulating amongst this side of the culture war because the audience is voting with their feet, the audience is voting with their dollar, and the audience has decided no more of this. You have to start giving us better stories. You have to start giving us good stories. Um, and really, if history is any judge, we would settle for decent stories. Be honest, you'd settle for decent stories. Um, but there is much congratulating on this side of the culture war, and I am here to say, perhaps, not so fast. Look, there is thought out there that Disney is too big to fail, that there is the $166 billion company can't go out of business. And yes, that's wrong. Disney can absolutely go bankrupt, but it's only, in my opinion, slightly wrong. While Disney can absolutely go bankrupt, and Bob Iger, through sheer fiduciary incompetence, one would be tempted to say through sheer fiduciary malice, seems happy enough to let that happen. Disney is not too big to fail, but Disney is too big to disappear. Meaning that in the event that they declare bankruptcy, in the event that their company gets to pennies on the dollar, what can happen is that someone can come in, swoop in, and quote unquote save the day. Someone can swoop in and buy Disney. Someone can swoop in and decide that all of the assets that Marvel and Star Wars represent now belong to them. And in the same way that Marvel and Star Wars quote unquote buttoned up when they are acquired by the corporate overlords that are Disney, think about Tony's sort of brash behavior in the first Iron Man, and then compare it to the third Iron Man. Think about the way that much of the violence in Star Wars essentially disappeared. Much of the verbiage disappeared in Star. What was old Boba Fett's ship named? Anyway, much of those things disappeared when these properties were acquired by Disney. Were Disney to be acquired by an even larger overlord, the buttoning down and filtering out of what we largely consider to be the good stuff would probably go exponential. Why? Because they don't want to rock the boats against their own political ideology. Likely, so too would the cultural decay into whatever woke garbage is in vogue by that time go exponential. And here's the thing right now, Disney is still small enough that when the audiences have decided not to support their movies, when the audiences have decided that I don't want to see that, I don't want to buy your toys for my children, I don't want to attend your park anymore. When consumers make that decision, Disney is still small enough that they have to listen at some point. I think the Bob Iger's ego, if nothing else, will eventually prickle. Bob Iger's ego eventually has to step up and say, you don't want to be the guy that let Disney go bankrupt. And I don't think he will. I do not think that he will let Disney go bankrupt, but that leaves one other option. Bob Iger became known as the king of accumulation. Bob Iger acquired Marvel. Bob Iger acquired Star Wars. These were the feathers in his caps in his cap when he thought he was going to peaceably retire until the such and such moved past, blew over, and then he'd come back, right? And he did come back. But all of the decay that he set in place were metastasized by the time that he got back. And he is reportedly saying things like, I don't know why I came out of retirement. Bob Iger, being the king of accumulation, might therefore see the best line of defense for him and his legacy as being the man to shepherd Disney into the steward of some other larger company. So, who are the players? If Bob Iger is to sell Disney, if Bob Iger is to make the House of Mouse the house of someone else, well, I'm afraid to break it to everyone. Elon Musk isn't coming to save us this time. Elon Musk is what is known, ironically, as cash poor. That is, the richest man in the world has a lot of assets, but all of those assets are tied up in businesses. And this was accelerated when he bought Twitter. He had so little cash that he had to liquidate essentially the entire value of Twitter from his holdings in Tesla, Tesla being his only public company. Now, Elon Musk owns Starlink. Elon Musk owns Neuralink. Elon Musk owns, I don't know, the Boring Company, SpaceX, all of these things that are multi-billion dollar companies. He owns them. He is the predominant shareholder in these businesses. But that doesn't mean that the money is liquid. That money is tied up. And he can't go and sell anything to buy Disney. So who are the players? Well, the players are very specific in this case. Apple. Apple has $61.5 billion on their books. They have that money cash. Amazon has $64.16 billion cash. And forget the capital B there. Microsoft has $143.94 billion in cash on hand. These are as of September. So I'm not sure exactly what Microsoft has. I don't know exactly what the Activision Blizzard deal did to that balance sheet. But those guys, they can buy Disney. And guess what? If Apple or Amazon, maybe to a lesser degree, a slightly lesser degree, but a lesser degree indeed, Microsoft, they all share the same politics that they have with Disney. And while Disney is small enough that when no one decides to go see Captain Marvel, that when no one decides to go see any of the movies they've put out this year, Disney is small enough that they have to listen to some degree. They at least have to attempt to appear that they are pulling an about face. And indeed, when Bob Iger decided to oust Bob Chapek and come back, these were the reasons he cited. He cited the financials. He cited political turmoil and financials. The political turmoil will be gone if Apple or Amazon, possibly Microsoft, acquires this company. And while Disney has to at least pretend to care what you and I think, Apple does not. Apple can lose that money. Amazon cannot. That's a rounding error to Amazon. Microsoft does not have to care whether or not you go see their movies. Now, Microsoft is one of the lesser talked about players in this field, but I believe Microsoft is not a streaming competitor. Mightn't they decide to get their hands on that pie? They've recently bought Activision Blizzard. What if they decided to put Activision Blizzard games, maybe the classics, right, on a blade in your Disney Plus profile? Yes, we've really put a dent in Disney. And Disney is small enough that they have to at least look like they're listening. But if everything goes just poorly enough that Bob Iger decides in his weaselly little car salesman mind that, oh, it's time to sell Disney in order to save my legacy, things can go real bad real fast.